Welcome to Amy. She's also the league member.
Bing, testing. Great. I like to move around, so I'm going to stay away from the podium. So I heard 3 different asks for topics today. So by show of hands, I'm going to tell you the 3, and I'd like you to show me which one you're most interested in. I'm going to tell you the 3 first, and then you'll vote, okay? So don't vote yet. The 3 are civic engagement, and you started it off well. The second is programs and opportunities for volunteering with the organization that I work for. And third is civil discourse, how to talk about hard things. So the first is civics engagement. The second is, don't vote yet. The second one is volunteering with Civics Learning Project and what our programs are. And the third is civil discourse. So now you get to vote. Civic engagement.
Could you define civic engagement?
Yes, it's in the slides. I just have so little time. I can't do it all. So I need to know which parts to rush and which parts to deep.
Can we vote for more than one?
You can vote for more than one. Okay. But it does make it hard. Okay, civic engagement. Great. That looks like an overwhelming majority. So I'll just start there. That is what I put first also. Okay, we're going to try to see the down arrow. Just do that. Great. So a little bit about my background. I have been a county planner, so I've seen the environmental regulation side and work for government. And then I went to school to become a teacher, and I did work with bilingual education. So I have a lens of that, and working in Southern California with recent arrival students. And then I became a social studies teacher in Oregon, and I also became a mom. And I learned how to do union leadership. So a lot of my civil engagement expertise is actually from the union engagement area. The unions really teach you how to do good civic engagement. And I also am a horse person, so the relevant aspect of that is, one, that I don't have money, so I have to give time to important causes, and 2, that I'm often surrounded by very conservative people. They're often conservative because they have money and want to protect it. Or because they like traditional ways of life. That's why we ride horses. There's something kind of mythological about still getting places by horseback, although we ride in circles. So, but in the apocalypse, I know how to do some of the things that we might need when we run out of gasoline. Okay. So you can go ahead, Carol. Thanks.
Amy, will these slides be available? I'm just trying to figure out how many notes to take.
Oh, you should take notes. Yeah, because I don't necessarily want slides to be taken out of context.
Sure, absolutely, but there's a recording.
Yes, I also forgot to tell you,
Right.
this is being live streamed and it will also be put on our website. So if you find this fabulous, which I'm sure you will, then you will run home and tell all your friends where to find it.
Great. At least in the recording, I'm still part of it. So my explanation. Things can be taken out of context, as you see every day now. So that's my. Some of this you already know. Like, you probably know that democracy is ruled by the people, but maybe until more recent times, you haven't thought about what your role is in that. And it is an active participation sort of a government. And as we see, when we get complacent and we start to think that things will always be the way they are, then we retreat. We have better things to do. I mean, I would rather go out on a hike than I would submit testimony to the legislature. However, without doing those duties, things get hijacked by the groups who show up. So we need to be the people who show up if we want to get our concerns prioritized. And you may get discouraged sometimes because maybe you don't have the deep pockets that others have. But sometimes without the deep pockets, we do have the numbers and we have the resilience and the voices. So getting engaged is a very important part of what we try to do with our student programs, just to let them know that voting is the easiest. That's the lowest lift you can do. You got to do a little more if you really want democracy to thrive. Go ahead. So I liked this. I found this. It breaks civic engagement into 4 sections: civic action, civic commitment or duty, civic skills, and social cohesion. So let's hit on all of those today. And by the way, this is just, probably someone did their PhD on this and broke this into 4 parts. It doesn't have to be how you define it, but this is just one way to look at it. Okay. So looking at, go ahead.
Oh,
Yes. The most,
I feel like Vanna.
yes, thank you. You're lovely. So social cohesion is part of what you do in the league, right? We had that lovely luncheon the other day, building relationships with people in the room, recognizing faces, taking care of each other. This is all important work for democracy. So if you have been a little isolated since the pandemic, it's time to get back out there. It's time to reform those bonds. And Carol and I love doing this together. We like to have a cocktail and talk about books and ideas, and I really value that relationship, and we keep each other in the loop. When she hears something, she tells me, and vice versa. So build those relationships. That's part of civic engagement. And next, it also helps if you have a commitment deep in your heart. So this is sort of a silent part. So we're going to take a moment, and I want you to just read it and think and kind of make a silent commitment. Now, to build on the social cohesion, find someone you don't know, introduce yourself, and tell them which one of these you liked best and you really want to dive into. I know it's hard to pick. There's no wrong answers. Introduce each other.
Or in front of the door. In front of the door is fine.
Okay, raise your hand if this was really easy and you're already on board, like you already have an A+ in civic engagement. Raise your hand proud, be proud.
Because we just did this exercise?
Did you just make a commitment?
I did,
Did you just meet someone?
I did.
A+.
I did. I was just kidding.
Okay, this is a participation part 2. So cozy up to your new friend. I want you to guess what these icons mean. I picked these graphics to represent civic skills. What do you think they represent?
You have to do them all?
You have to do them all with your partners.
Okay.
No, do them together. Don't split them up. This is collaborative.
Yes. In 3 seconds, we're gonna stop. I've got grandchildren, you know, but my kids don't.
You're much easier than freshmen in high school. Easiest one. What's this one?
Give money.
Fundraising, right? It takes money. We have to collectively gather money. Okay, how about this one?
Right.
Ooh, writing to your representatives, maybe writing testimony, letters to the editor.
Having fun.
Have fun.
Right, or collaboration, or social cohesion, being able to work in a group. Great.
Speak out.
Attending meetings, attending events.
Listen to speaking out.
It was going to be public speaking, right? The ability to articulate things. It's not over like that. I know that the digital media is sort of dominant, but someone who can really speak well can still have a lot of impact. Or people with amazing art, poetry, things like that. So being able to put your thoughts into voice about this.
Educate yourself, education.
Yes. Or research, like how many of us are now having to do deep dives to verify if things are true now,
Absolutely.
right? And then knowing what good sources, and it's constantly a moving target. So that's probably the most exhausting one right now for me, because I curate our current events for our organization. So finding excellent sources to provide to teachers and students is what I was doing and why I was not here earlier.
I told them you were slipping and sliding on the iron.
Yeah, I only did that once. Okay, how about this one? Yes, in fact, I typed in leadership. This is a model of leadership that I really like, which is sort of a servant leadership, right? You use your leadership position to help others rise. And then this is the one that is the lowest lift, the easiest one we can do, which is
Social media.
Armchair activism?
you get a prize for that one. That was you, right? And you're knitting while doing it. Yes, this is actually marketing. But I like that you said armchair activism. The reason that this isn't more powerful is because of the algorithms. So you may not be reaching anyone outside your own bubble with this, and that's sort of a challenge right now. Yes, go ahead.
It got everybody out protesting yesterday, so I don't agree.
But that's
Nice.
probably people in the bubble,
Right?
right?
It was a big bubble.
That's great.
It
Good.
was a big bubble.
Good.
Austin was huge.
Yay.
It was all 50 states. You're not seeing it in the news, but it was huge. It was big, and it was because of social media that got everybody out there. So it can't be, it can't be like a set, it isn't all,
Correct.
but it is a part.
It is a part. It is a part. Absolutely.
And you have to get young people engaged,
Yes,
Right.
yes.
and that's how you get young people engaged.
Yes.
I just had a quick question about like writing our legislators. Is it better to write a letter or send an email? feel
I
like-
just read something yesterday that said they don't read the letters, but the phone
It's
calls
phone
are
calls.
working.
Oh,
You
phone
have to
calls.
monitor the phone calls.
Okay.
I even left Greg Walden a handwritten letter on his desk in DC and never got a reply. I was very disappointed, so I made sure he didn't get reelected, although I'm not sure if things got better. Yes,
The commissioners read their emails.
commissioners read their emails. Okay, good. Well, we were going to do this activity physically, but I'm not sure we should. Okay, so I want you to think in your head, are you a nope? Are you a, are you a definitely? Or are you like, maybe with a friend? We're gonna go through some examples of things you could do.
realistically, what would you be
Yeah,
likely to
Yeah,
do?
so how likely are you to, and you can keep your answer to yourself here, volunteer at a local shelter, soup kitchen, clean up, right? So you can think, would I do that? Do I hesitate? And then the next one, advocacy and activism, we were just talking about it. Would you work on commenting on legislation that's in process, participating in peaceful protests? And there's an age difference on who's comfortable doing that one, by the way. How about registering to vote? I think this organization is very comfortable with that, right? Contacting elected officials, so there's blending between these categories. Attending a political event, volunteering for a campaign. Local, you said the counselors or the commissioners are reading their emails. Hopefully you are tracking that our county actually is how a lot of federal government programs get implemented in our community. So following what the county is doing is very important. And then the city also takes on some big scope things. It could, as a little city, just keep its head in the sand and not pay attention, but it is really a very responsive city council. Lots of participation, lots of people running for these offices too. We have a lot of vibrant folk. How about digital civic engagement? And we just talked about that, right? Will you share information? Will you build a base? Also, pushing back against false information, I think, is an important part of that, being an online presence, being a useful and making sure to check your sources before you share.
Amy, how do you push back?
Politely, actually. That is, I go politely. I have a friend who doesn't, and I'm always like, oh, and I clutch my pearls. But you can be firm without being, and we're going to get into that with civil discourse. Like, I can be very, very assertive without being rude. Well, I mean, some people might think it was rude, but I don't think it's rude to be correct. Or fact-based. Or to urge caution.
Yeah,
Like,
I like
have
that.
you considered, or what about the, and phrasing it in a question is always and not a snarky question. I mean, you could phrase anything in a very snarky way. Research. So we were just talking about this. Analyze data. Unfortunately, I heard the census data just came down. Hopefully, one of the sources I really like to use is USA Facts. They have a lot of census data, so hopefully they captured what's there while the federal government is bumpy. And then, are you willing to be a leader yourself? I think this organization has had trying moments where the leadership had to change and people had to take on more at the last minute. And sometimes people get ill and have to share leadership. So a lot of you are already doing this. I had originally made this for students, so that's why the word student shows up. That is my main job. So before I move on to what we do as an organization with students, does anyone have a quick comment or question? Quick, before we go to the next section. Okay, is everyone still with me?
Yes.
Okay. Not everyone looks like they're still with me. All right, this was one of my favorite moments. I didn't get to be there in person, but I got this organized. Senator Wyden wanted to meet the kids of the program that I help run in the state, which is Community Action Projects. These kids are from Cascade Middle School, so our local middle school is very close to here, and they proposed a policy to protect wildlife from pets. And they went in front of city council chambers not during city council session, but we did a special event there, and they got to propose to important adults what their ideas were, explain them, provide the data, provide the expertise, and every kid in their group, and there were more than just that, spoke. So they were practicing public speaking, they were presenting their analysis, they had a presentation, they wrote a song to help us remember the good important. So the senator came and honored them. They also won the national level of the highest rank you could win, these kids from Bend. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. That's the most policy-oriented project we have. We operate, we're all of Oregon, so I am in charge of Central Oregon because I'm based here and all my connections are here, and because we don't have an Eastern person, I also do Eastern Oregon. I really like it out there. We're a 40-year-old nonprofit. Our name has changed several times, and one of our newest hotshot volunteers is in the back wearing a bow tie and looking very snazzy. Jim is organizing our mock trial competition. This is our staff, does not include our main volunteers. This is just people getting a paycheck. So we're all over the state. This is our theme for the year. It's really appropriate this year. We also, this organization exists because we see the important role of education in keeping democracy alive. And we also helped pass legislation to make civics a graduation requirement in this state.
Yay!
It's not like I wasn't teaching it before, but now it's codified, right? It's law, so you can use it. So just a quick look at it. Oregon. We win the national championships a lot in this program. This is a constitutional program. It is very, very hard. The kid teams, this is last year's winners, they have to prepare a testimonial answer using constitutional document knowledge, founding documents, using case law, and using current events to prove their answer. And then after they provide testimony, they have to respond to 6 minutes of question and answers from hard, like really professional people who know this stuff. And they're doing great. We don't have a lot of this happening in Central Oregon. It's happening in little spots and it's not full competition, but one of the hopes was that I could get more of this program going here. And it does meet lots of content standards for language arts and civics. Mock trial is really well known. We have 2 teams from Summit, one from Bend High and one from Cascades Academy competing March 1st. I think we have enough judges volunteering, but we could probably use some extra people in case someone gets sick or gets stuck or has a family emergency. So Jim is in the back. See him if you're interested in helping judge. You don't have to have a law degree or anything to judge. You have a question?
Yeah, I want to know how your organization integrates into the youth education. Are you a after-school club? Are you, like, how does that interface?
Good question.
with schools?
Some of these schools are so hardcore in their mock trial or with the people teams, and they're mostly in Portland or on the I-5 corridor, that they have a course.
Wow.
Or some teachers that teach like AP Gov are like, every kid is going to be on my We the People team. If you're going to be in AP Gov, you're also doing We the People. Here, it's very pioneer attitude out here. Like people are like, I do it my way. So little less organization out here. Our mock trial teams tend to be a student club after school. And that's tough because you know how athletic this town is. Almost everyone's doing sports. And finding time when kids are free is really tough. So that's one of the challenges of my job. Yeah.
So, I won't take a lot of your time, but this is sort of where my brain goes and why I am doing what I'm doing in the community. There's a lot of amazing people doing stuff, yourself included. But this is where I think about when we look at kids and we look at where they are developmentally and what their needs are for learning at that time and being, having their like contributions valued, right? Especially these adolescents. One of the things that we concoct are these real world things like National History Day, mock trial, etc., right? And I'm always thinking about how to get more blood out of the turnip, how to do more with what's already in existence and how can we milk it for more in terms of spreading our goodness around. One of the things that popped up, and this might not be possible, but I know that LCA they're helping people get, the Latino Community Association is helping people get their citizenship testing, like studying. And
Yeah, I
testing, right?
volunteered to help with those classes.
So I'm wondering, like, when I think about this kind of thing, I'm like, well, God, these kids are like, they're so passionate about this. It's an area of interest and expertise. They could be getting their volunteer hours, helping people learn like these things for their tests. So anyway, these are sort of like, how do we do more with less? You know,
Let's
how do we
talk
know what
after.
we've got? So anyway, those are sort of thoughts that come to my mind as you're going through this, and I love it. Anyway.
Great. Sounds like I have a new volunteer. Community action projects, again, is where the students identify an issue in the community and examine policy solutions and pick the best and then pitch it. So this is about, it does, I mean, we're a nonpartisan organization, but this does have a fundamental assumption that government is needed for some things. Okay, so that is the bias. The bias is pro-democracy and the government can be helpful in certain circumstances. Just to be fully transparent. I didn't know democracy was controversial when I took the job. I'm in charge of this year, so I've been curating our current events. I write a summary and then I collect links to podcasts, articles, editorials on the subject, and we send it out to teachers twice a month. You can subscribe if you want, even though you're not the target audience, why not? I mean, if you want me to help you sift through the news, you got it. It's already free. I also can get you on the list later. So I'm putting on a conference up at COCC for high school students to come and meet people who work in fields doing all these sorts of things for a living, to meet organizations like this one that are doing things, and to hear topics of interest. So this is a bunch of kids learning from the city of Bend. They were doing a simulation on how to spend the money on the new central district. That hopefully the Hawthorne Bridge, I mean, that funding is threatened now, but that doesn't mean we can't still have a redo of that section of town. And it's supposed to be a walkable, climate-friendly community there. So the kids were deciding how to do that on their own. That was a really cool session, very well attended. This is a tour of the elections office I took some students on. We, especially in Multnomah County, do a lot of court tours so they can watch a trial. Unfortunately, our courthouse here is too small to bring classes in. So hopefully with the new rebuild, that will happen. Jackson County does this a lot. So my colleagues get to do more court tours than I do. But so we host these competitions for all the programs that you've heard. We do it for some of these are national programs. We also have a scholarship for students and a scholarship for teachers. So this is my friend Susan. She won this year's Civic Educator of the Year. She's at Ridgeview. She is phenomenal. She also does that hard We the People program, constitutional one, with every one of her Gov kids. Every kid in her class does it. And my job is I often give workshops to teachers. So, so far, this has been just a voluntary thing, people who come. We would love to get districts to make teachers go, but it's not probably gonna ever happen. And I did say that on camera, so now my teacher friends will be mad at me. We put on the Oregon Civics Conference for the Oregon Legislature every year. This year we brought Joe Schmidt, and I've been teaching his book around the state. So the next part of our talk is going to be about his suggestions on how to have good conversations and build stronger communities, starting with classroom conversations. That is the premise of the book. How much time do I have to do civil discourse with these guys?
40 to 1 is maybe.
Great. We can do this. So our motto, and it's on the bumper stickers we have here, is the best way to preserve democracy is to teach democracy. We also work on civic skill development. So one of the tools today that you might want to practice when I put you into groups will be how to build consensus. And consensus is different than majoritarian voting. It's not a winner take all kind of thing. Like I got 50.5%, therefore it's my way or the highway. Consensus is more about trying to figure out what will work for everyone in the room. Not necessarily your favorite choice, but something that we can all live with. So it would go like this. I'll read it to you. If you're very excited about what your group comes up with, you're a 5, you're all in, you're enthusiastic, you're endorsing, you're championing it. If you're, you agree, but you're not like that passionate, you're like, yeah, I'm for that, that's a 4. 3 is, I can live with that. 2 is, I disagree. Wait, I skipped 1. I agree with reservations. That's 3. I agree with reservations. And you can state the reservations. 2 is, I can live with it. 1 is, I disagree strongly, but I'm not going to stop this. I'm not going to get in the way of it, but I am lodging my complaint. And this is, you know what the fist means, right? Resist. This is fun. With all the programs I talked about, I have a couple events. This one is the mock trial one at the Deschutes County Courthouse. If you're interested, we can give you a shorter shift, or you can be one of our backup people that we call in if someone doesn't show. May 6th is the Law Day Conference at COCC. If you're interested in presenting a particular topic or want to be our volunteers, help get the students to the right room, help us with really anything. I can't be everything at once, so you helped me a lot. Thank you. And also some of you might want to man a voter registration booth there again this year. That is at COCC. And then this is the community action projects I was telling you about where the kids propose policy. You could be a judge of those projects if you're interested in volunteering for that. So why don't you turn to your neighbor and tell them what you're most interested in that I said, or what bothered you the most about what I said. Okay, any formal complaints before we move forward?
Just a question.
Great.
Is there a big demand for this, or do you have to work hard to get these students to sign up, or is there a waiting list? Or
That is an excellent question.
Or how does it like
everybody-
Yes, I'll repeat it.
position?
Yes.
Are we ready to be listeners?
Yes.
Is your name Kathy?
Yeah, thank you for your.
Yeah. I don't have my glasses on, but it looks like. So Kathy asked, how much demand is there? And you meant from the students, right?
From the students, do you have to recruit them? Are they standing in line?
I would
Do you have to
say
do it?
it depends on the school. So there's places where there's a long history of, of We the People are Not trial team. And they're like, oh, my older brother did that. I want to do it. Or my dad did that. Or my grandpa's coaching the team. In that case, yes. They might even have tryouts. Here, I'm like begging, talking about getting blood from a turnip, right? But that's because we have a different culture. In every part of the state, there's a different culture and there's different things. So like when I give a teacher workshop and I don't plan around fair, like up in Madras, Culver, Redmond, fair is the focus. And if I don't plan for that, I'm not gonna have any teachers in my workshop, right? That is a different culture than you'll see in downtown Eugene, where they're not raising animals to take to fair.
So students kind of not following what that does for you.
So I am cheerleading these programs in Central Oregon. I am not turning away anyone. There is very little bandwidth right now on the part of teachers. There are not just new civics requirements. There's also new personal finance requirements. There's new socio-emotional learning requirements. There's new science standards. There's new language arts, early literacy standards, and teachers don't have more time. In fact, they have less time. When we were all in school, we did not have online grade books. And I will tell you, online platforms take time to build. So when I was in the classroom, it took a lot of time. We did a lot of clicking, we did a lot of uploading. You're doing a lot of responding to parents. Parents can see every assignment, right? It's a lot, and teachers are exhausted. So it is a rare teacher who's like, I want to try a new program. I almost think I have an impossible job. Yes.
Again, this is where my brain goes to the everyday teacher is going to say, dude, I got nothing left. Don't ask me to do one more thing.
Yes, that's
And
what
I keep trying to say is it's not one more. Let's stop the ride, get off of it, and figure out what we can do that you're already doing. What can we augment that you're already doing? And the new requirements that you put together, you can teach anything from anything. So let's combine what we're learning about social emotional connection with people and build that into civic discourse and build that into the science of the human body.
It's true.
And build that into, and you don't have to do it separately.
You're right, but you have to have a willing audience.
Yes.
So
I have a question.
Yeah.
So my daughter is in government at Summit right now.
Uh-huh.
She's a senior.
Does she have
Brilliant.
Miss
She's super smart.
Marnie? Is her
No,
teacher?
all I know is it's a man.
Mr. McDonald?
And she says it's horrible.
Oh, okay. We're not
And
gonna
I'm
name names.
sitting there going, government right now, in a class, how can that be horrible?
How could it be boring?
We
How can
asked-
it be boring?
Yeah, we asked my stepson last night, he's 14, we said, so are people talking about what's going on at school? And he said, no one wants to touch it. No one is talking about it at all. It is just silent to
So
it.
why couldn't it be that
Well, I
this
do,
is a part
I had
of the
current events.
program into the school so that it's part of,
Because the school has to want it.
oh.
So
okay,
also,
so you can't
there's-
just sit there and
I
say
had
this will be-
teachers, I was doing current events and a book study. I did that book study with some Crook County teachers. And they said, we're not allowed to teach current events. We have to get approval from our administration if we want to talk about a current event. So we've got a big issue, but I'm gonna teach you a few tips on how to have civil discourse about these issues, because they're very, very painful and they're important. And Crook County is kind of up in arms right now with superintendent just left, lots of stuff. So you can practice this. We're gonna pick, however, a calmer, less charged topic to practice, okay? I picked a topic that is both important and relevant to every one of you, but is not gonna make you think the person next to you is an immoral person for having a different opinion. We're gonna talk about oh, I have so much to go over. I don't know how we're gonna get there. When is it appropriate to tip and at what percentage? Okay? And maybe how long do we have the building? Really? We have to vacate? Okay. So you'll have to continue the conversation with your friends and family. One of the important things to do is to start with shared facts. If you're having a war of facts, you're not having a conversation. So I'm giving you some facts. Here we go. These are the states in our country so far. Right, we might have more. You can see there is a line here and a line here. This line is a federal tipped minimum wage, and this is the federal minimum wage. I didn't know that they were separate things because I live in Oregon and we don't have separate ones. But in some states, some of you are from elsewhere, there is a different minimum wage if you have a job that gets tips from a minimum wage that doesn't. Okay, so now look how much more interested in my data you are. If you see the ones where there's no gray and blue, it's just blue, that means that is one of these states where they don't have a separation of tipped versus regular minimum wage. That means tipped workers are making the minimum wage. And in some states, that's a lot. And in some states, that's not. Wyoming is at the top. Washington's at the bottom. In the middle, Idaho. So if Idaho gets what they want and half of Oregon becomes Idaho, then Oregon's tipped workers will then go from making, in Eastern Oregon, I think our minimum wage is around 13, 14 bucks. They will then make $4 an hour plus their tips. Okay, so that's you're thinking about.
That's what Idaho.
Here's the rules for having a good conversation.
That's the minimum wage in Idaho.
For tips.
We're gonna be respectful. We're gonna use reasoning, frontal lobe, not reptilian brain. We're going to try to have mutual understanding and problem solve, not win. We're all on the same team. We're not, this isn't a war. There's no winners, there's no losers. We're all winners because we're all gonna learn a little bit, right? Next is, you're gonna respond with questions the more you can, and you're gonna use open-ended questions to encourage dialogue. You don't ask a snarky question that there's only one right answer to. That's not the true meaning of inquiry. We're gonna use open-ended questions. So if I could say, like one of the hardest topics to talk about in a classroom is immigration, but the way the teacher words the question can lead to a productive conversation or something where people are in tears or yelling. It could be very bad. Pick the right size question, not should we have immigration? It's way too big, right? It could be something smaller, like what do you think we should do with children born on U.S. soil to undocumented parents, right? That is a smaller task to take on. So take bite-sized chunks at a time. Pick something that hasn't already been settled. Although many of us in this room thought something was settled and found out in the last 2 weeks that it was not settled, right? And that is part of why some of us are extremely tired right now. Carefully word it. If I'm the teacher or the moderator, I'm going to give evidence. I'm going to give thinking time. I'm going to have you write first, or at least think first before you have to be on the spot. We're going to practice with an easy topic. And if there's someone in this room who's not willing to learn about tipping, I want you to leave right now. Okay? We can all close our eyes for a moment so it can be anonymous. Close your eyes. If you're not willing to learn, you just think you know everything about tipping, you can leave now. Okay. I use ad fonts to pick where I get my facts. I told you USA Facts is one of my favorites. It's at the top and in the middle. Top middle is where I look for facts. If I want analysis, you can go to the sides. I would say unless you're interested in a philosophical journey, don't go far that way or far this way in your reading. Unless you are looking to explore like astronauts or deep sea divers, you want to get stuff that is not likely to become what happens, because we are a democracy, therefore you have to get the majority to agree to something. So that is why staying in the center with the analysis may be your better bet.
How did P and Z get there?
Oh, these are always moving. Yes, it is. That's why you should go to the website. It's ad fonts, media bias chart, and they revise them. They now have 13 different editions. So I put my favorite ones over here for you because it was hard to read. This is that chart. Now, you can take a screenshot if you want. Or write it.
I've not ever heard of that. Are any of the rest of you familiar with that?
No.
Oh, good.
Oh.
Good.
If we get nothing else out of this, we got some media literacy. I would like to do a screening of this film here in town. I'm trying to find a place that will host it. I'm trying to find an organization that will pay the screening fee. The producer's willing to come to Bend, and I'm working on this. It is my passion project.
How much is
$5.50 for the screening, and the school district's charging quite a bit for the auditorium, the custodians, the blah, 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 blah. So if you have an idea, talk to me after. I'm very interested. You can all watch it on your own for free. If you have a library card, you can watch it through their Canopy app.
Okay.
She doesn't know it. I have to send it.
All right, let's go. We're gonna focus on the problem, not the people. What's the problem?
The people.
That's a great code. What's the topic we've chosen that's easy? Tipping, right. And everyone in the room, by voting with your bodies, is willing to learn about it. The emphasis today is not to target someone's humanity. You know, you're not gonna point at them and be like, you're the worst human ever because you only left a 10% tip. That's not what we're doing. We're looking to learn more, hard stop if you hear derogatory language, and then I don't have time to teach it, but there are protocols for microaggressions or macroaggressions or just flat violence. I went to the same school this woman did, and she developed this protocol on how to respond to microaggressions. But again, this is like my 4-hour presentation. We are just doing it in 40 minutes. It's going to be tough. We can't do it all. Hopefully there are no microaggressions over tipping. So listen for understanding and monitor your own voice. If you know you like to talk, you monitor your own voice so no one else has to. Okay? Keep cool heads and warm hearts. Here we go. Form groups of 4. And begin responding. When is it appropriate to tip and at what percentage? Okay, I'm going to pause.
Other, and then I bring the tip down.
Press pause.
I can see that for when I'm doing a takeout.
So I doubt there's resolution on every question, every aspect of this question, right? Because you have to decide, number one, what sort of things deserve a tip? And I overheard many groups having the same conversation, which is now I'm being asked to tip on things where there's no service, right? That goes against what the theory of tipping was, right? And then do you do a percentage? Do you do a flat fee? There's so many things to wonder. And then correctly, someone asked me, what's the connection between minimum wage and your tip? They could be totally separate, right? Well, I included that information in case you feel that your tip amount would change depending on what state you're in with the knowledge of how little some people make, right? Because that's how I feel about it. So I made that assumption. You could also reject that and be like, I do 20% everywhere. Or you could be like 15% everywhere. I'm not changing. The times can change. I'm not changing. I heard some people say, oh, I didn't even know I was supposed to tip on this thing. And I never did until I learned I was supposed to, and then I changed my behavior. So how many of you learned something recently that you didn't know before and you had changed your tipping behavior?
Like in this group or just in general?
In the last few years, you learned about something, you were like, oh, and you felt bad because you hadn't done it in the past. Like, I didn't know I was supposed to tip hairdressers because my mom cut my hair when I was a kid. And so then I was like, oh, right. Ooh. And so all those hairdressers probably thought I didn't like the job they did, right? Because they never say, and now it's time for my tip, please. It's so awkward. Or my former mother-in-law, she would tip the postal workers at Christmas. And I was like, oh, I've never done that. And I feel so bad. But then when I'm at Cart Food and they're like, I heard you guys talking about the screen turns around and they're like, all right, here we go. And I'm like, I'm paying $20 for a burrito and I'm supposed to pay 25% tip, but I'm holding it myself and there's no chair and I'm eating it
Well, hit
standing
the
up.
other, just hit the other
You have to
button.
hit up.
Yeah, you have to get creative.
Right, so there's so much to unpack here. I'm guessing that you had an interesting shallow dive. What do you need to know to have a resolution? To answer the question fully, what information would you want to know?
A list of who you're supposed to tip.
But it's subjective. I looked it up. I asked AI to generate that list for me and it was very interesting. I was like, oh, I've never done that. I've never done that. Oh, I felt like the worst person.
Well, I was always taught that if someone was the proprietor, you didn't tip the proprietor.
Yeah,
That's true.
But
That's true.
it seems like they expect to be tipped these days because that still comes up on the swipe.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well,
but they're getting.
just
that.
try every AI you come across.
They're
Just
getting
ask,
that.
what things do you require a tip? See what they come up with. See if there's a variation in them. It could be how you test these artificial intelligence. Yes.
I was also, this came up as like how much, because so many of us do a credit card, how much is that credit card that we're putting on actually get to the server? And then we're like, we should be bringing cash.
Right.
3%.
And what country are you in?
Free.
If you're a world traveler, you know there are countries where you don't tip.
Right,
That's wrong.
right.
Or it's included in the bill. And then Americans come and they tip on top of it and then you're broke at the end of the trip. You can't buy souvenirs.
Yeah.
Yes.
One thing I've realized, and it hasn't, stupidly, I didn't realize it for a long time, but I used to put all my tips on my credit card when I paid my bill. And then found out that, well, the person you're trying to tip is gonna be paying taxes on that.
Yeah.
So now when I go to the nail salon, let's say, it's not someone who owns it, but the worker at the nail salon is really not making that much money. I always try to make sure I tip in cash.
Cash is king.
Because that way they're not paying taxes on that tip that, you know, I feel differently about people like the hairdresser who owns their own business.
Right.
You know, it's different than somebody who's just working, or a job and.
Did you have something to share? Your face was saying, I need to speak.
All of the things, because now sometimes the proprietor is working just as hard as anybody else is. It's not like that they're standing there giving the orders to everybody else. They're clearing tables and they're picking things up. And I think that, I don't sit and ask somebody, oh, do you own this place? Because I don't think I want to tip you then.
Right.
But the other thing that I think happens that sometimes is on us, but when you go on a lot of the menus and it says at the bottom, if you have more than 8 in your party, we're gonna add 10% to your bill. And nobody looks at that, so then they add another 10% and nobody corrects them, so somebody gets double tips.
And I think that number's coming down a bit too. It doesn't have to be 8 people anymore.
I know.
6.
And I think it's more like 18. It's 18%.
No, I mean, the people, like, if it's 8 or more people.
No,
it's
but
automatically
yeah,
taxed.
but it's not
Well,
10, well, most
Yeah.
places I've seen, it's not 10% anymore. It's
Yes.
18.
No,
I
10%
encourage you to
is taken
keep
off.
talking about this
Yeah.
and practice responding with questions, being open to hearing different things. And then when you talk about something more difficult, like women's reproductive health care, you could practice, you'll already have a few skills. I'm not saying it's always going to go easily, but the more you practice having hard conversations, the easier it should get. But if you find yourself having a conversation with someone that's not a conversation, it is a competition, then I would say politely exit that conversation and be like, I have energy to spend in more productive ways.
I was just curious if, I know you're doing these teacher workshops, but is there one that we could attend that we could learn these skills as well? Because I feel very
I want the full 4 hours.
unprepared to have, I know how I feel, I'm passionate about it, but like trying to get the facts in my head and I get all riled up and then I just end up walking away and I know it's not.
Getting another beer.
I know it's not constructive, and so I know I lack those skills.
I'm not sure that I'm always good at this either. I'm not sure I'm qualified to lead that.
Hey, you're more qualified than we are.
Well, I'm not sure about that either. Like, you might be way nicer than I am.
Oh, no, she's not.
The other day, my brother's dog and my dog were not. Yeah, they weren't. Mine's young, his is old. So she's like, ah, and his is, right? And so my brother was like, he said something to me that fired me up in a way I had no good self-control.
Brothers do that.
Right? And I thought, oh, the irony that I would teach civil discourse. I was like, and I had to keep my husband away from my brother because my husband was like, because what my brother said was very threatening. And like, my blood was boiling immediately. So,
Well, those who so you know the saying, those who can't teach. So
by the way, Nancy threw my mom's baby shower for my brother when he was born. So I can't say too much more about my brother in that instance because
This is documented.
I know, right? But I was ready to defend my dog.
so let's say you don't teach the class, but are there resources where we could find something
There's
that would
yes.
help us
Yes.
have better communication
That would be
skills?
awesome.
well,
Yeah, I
the
know I
book-
need it.
I do think this book was fantastic and it was easy to read.
And I think the group Braver Angels attempts to do
Yes.
that.
What group is that?
Braver Angels is doing that around the state. There are trained mediators who you can hire if you and your brother have a dispute. But I do need to wrap up and I do need feedback. So I have to go to my last slide. I'm very sorry. I'm happy to give more presentations, but I'm supposed to be teaching students and teachers. So we have to find a way to make my supervisors more okay with me doing community things.
Can I make a quick comment, please? Thank you. My name's Ann, well, I don't need this, I have a loud voice. I'm Ann Wyman, and I have just completed an ambassadorship orientation for Braver Angels.
Oh, nice.
To start an alliance here in Deschutes County. There's 27 people that are members, but no one wants to lead the alliance. And the alliance is, the Braver Angels is to bridge the divide. That's the mission, bridge the divide between political parties. And in order to do that, I won't say what party I'm in, but I need another partner. I need a co-lead who's in the opposite party I'm in. So I'm shopping around.
I was just 100% I'm sticking with you, but
Is your scarf indicative?
Stay tuned.
yeah, I love that.
Maybe Molly has a comment.
Okay, yes.
Well, I had noticed in almost all your slides and also in life in general that most of the students that are in your engagement group are women, are girls. And only a few of them were males. And thanks to the few males that were prodded into coming to this. And,
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Hey, ask you to come.
Are you finding that is the case, that males seem to be unengaged in this territory?
I could go on for a really long time about the gender gap right now in schools, and that could be a whole separate presentation, but when I taught the IB courses at Benpai, the International Baccalaureate, that's like, it's like AP in that it's a weighted class and it has a lot more work and a lot, it's college level. It was like 75% girls, and if we try to recruit some boys, they'd say, why would I work harder? And I was like, does that make them smarter?
Or dumber?
Are
Yeah,
they
here we are.
uninspired? Or I think we have a whole generation of not knowing where they fit in society, and that I am not an expert on it, but anecdotally, it was definitely more girls in the harder stuff, more girls going to med school, more girls going into the sciences.
More girls in college today
Yeah.
than there are. Yeah.
Yes, it is not just in this programming. And I'm not gonna speculate anymore on camera. But yeah, you're right, you observed correctly.
Thank you.
Uh-huh. Yes, I'll stay, but I do have to say, thank you so much for coming.
Thank you.
I love how much energy you all had, and I hope to see you soon. Please give feedback, you can do it later if you want,
Yeah.
but, thank you for coming, if you wanna stay and talk after. Jim's gonna be back here if you wanna do mock trial, and I can talk to you about anything else.
Better, less, afraid to say something.
You know,